Well, welcome, Senator Burzichelli. Thank you so much for coming out to the podcast today.
I'm thrilled to be here. Where'd the dog go?
She left. She'll be back.
It's a
She'll be back
wonderful,
around.
wonderful setting, by the way. For all of you watching, it's a beautiful day outside, and it's a beautiful day here. I'm happy to be with both Jen and Jen.
Yeah, well, thank you. And just a background, you are a New Jersey Senator, LD3,
That's
South
correct.
Jersey, and you've been in politics for a few years.
Too long since
Yeah,
it's an elected office of one kind or another since 1996.
yeah.
Long
So
time.
you know a thing or two.
Well, I wouldn't. I don't
Yeah.
know if people would agree with that, but I've been around long enough to have watched a lot.
Mhm. So this is wonderful. So today, I think one of the hot topics that's out there is energy in New Jersey. And I think, in the next few minutes, we can just solve all of New Jersey's energy problems and get through everything and have
Right.
time to spare afterwards. So why don't we back up about where the current state of energy in New Jersey is at? Because it seems like there's a lot going on. There's a ton of information out there. Can you maybe outline for the listeners where we're currently at with energy in New Jersey?
It's not very complicated. It's just too expensive. I mean, that's the bottom line. And for those watching, get another cup of coffee because it's looking in the weeds a little bit. I mean, we have been held hostage by what is called a capacity market auction run by the regional grid operator, which is called PJM, and recently come under fire from the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission that maybe they're not efficient, maybe they're too big, all that sort of thing. But bottom line was about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago on that because in New Jersey, like PSEG cannot be in a generation business because when we deregulated, they were taken out. They're in a distribution business. Like PSEG New Jersey does not run a nuclear plant. The other side of their company does. So they're in the distribution business, as is Atlantic City Electric, which is the supplier where we're sitting. So they have to go out and they have to buy electricity, and the PJM, which is they're responsible for moving electricity. And they're a wonderful house of engineers. They're the best in the world, quite frankly, in that part of what they do. They're not so good with having a sense of affordability, listening to people, how the decisions affect people. So prior to the auction that went sideways, is the term we're using, a megawatt hour of electricity to generate was being bought for $28. After this auction, which went bad, when I say went bad, we raised lots of questions and it's finally getting the right attention. It went to $270 for the same megawatt hour of electricity in one move. So that directly affected all of our bills immediately. And now it has a cap of like 320 or something of that nature, which is crazy. But that's the way it is. Some people are blaming data centers and various things, and they play a large role in this with regards to when PGM goes out to run that auction, they're projecting what they're going to need down the road, even though they may not need it today, even though some of the stuff may never get built. Their auction is based upon their projected demand. So that did not serve us well.
Mhm.
And that's really impacted our bills terribly. I mean, my residential bill is stupid. I mean, and from the business standpoint, we had the studio. Now we're coming into air conditioning season again. I mean, it's like we now have another partner.
Mhm.
So, there's been a lot of flurry of bills, what we're going to do, what can we do? Frankly, we talked about withdrawing from PJM. There's 13 states. I think the District of Columbia is thrown in, so there's 14 entities. Should we leave them? Because we import more electricity than we presently generate. Because, the New Jersey strategy in the last administration was to concentrate on offshore wind. And so we didn't, in anticipation of that coming, which by the way, had the president not decided he didn't like wind because he's still upset about the windmills off of the Scotland golf course and the others had not jumped on the bandwagon, we'd probably be about, I'm going to say conservatively 13, 15 months away from having the first wind farm working, which would almost be equal to a nuclear plant.
Okay.
That would have been a big deal from capacity. So now we have to regroup. Myself, and by the way, I should say, like Assemblyman Bailey has been our point person in the assembly on this stuff. So you see how confusing this can get very quickly without being so long-winded. The simple question, the answer to your question is it's too expensive. The answer is fortunately electricity is available because I find it very curious that they could raise the price because I don't think the bidding was handled as we expect public bidding to be handled. So there was too much demand at $28 an hour, but if you pay me $270 an hour, you can have as much electricity as you want. Just a point of curiosity. So good news is the lights are on, as long as you can afford to pay the bill. So, but now you hear discussion about maybe another nuclear plant being built, and there's been recent legislation. We had to go back in and refresh the statute because there was a certain point in time where nuclear had fallen out of favor. So New Jersey's structure about nuclear was restrictive. Well, that's been changed. And now there's a second bill now coming that's going to require the BPU to go out for interest to see who would like to maybe build this additional
Mhm.
plant. These modular units are being discussed. So it's going to get jump started. And I say this because when I agree with people, I want to say I agree with them. The one thing the Trump administration has done that I agree with is that they're providing a subsidy for nuclear development, 75 cents on the dollar. That's a big deal
That is a big deal.
because a new nuclear
Yeah.
plant's going to cost anywhere from 28 to 32 billion. That's with a B.
Right.
So, 75% of that's a big help. Now, the operators of our nuclear facility will tell you that there's still great risks. They still got to come up with anyway, $7 to $8 billion. And one of the caveats of the federal support is any cost overruns sit with the developer. So once the feds establish a number, and that's going to be a competitive process
Mhm.
with respect to who gets it. So although New Jersey's well positioned and ready to go to participate in that. So the present legislation will key all that off. So hopefully we're successful and either a traditional nuclear plant is built or you'll see a series of these modular units be sited. So
Where have the modular units been used in other places in the US? Like, are they a reliable energy source, or is this a new technology that's kind of being piloted?
You know, I asked the same question with respect to what about the cooling? How's it going to
Mhm.
work? Because
Yeah,
these
yeah.
are smaller units.
Mhm.
I'm of the understanding Canada is installing now.
Mhm.
When I say now, so it's in real time.
Right, right.
I've still have not gotten a clear answer if one particular design has been approved for America,
Mhm.
but it's clearly coming.
Okay.
Tech just up the road in Camden is a ground zero with it. There's some others as well. General Electric's in the mix. There's so it's coming, and apparently because of the size, they're closed loop cooling systems. You're not going to see the big cooling towers.
Mhm.
But right now, the legislation we're doing, although the modular units could fall under it, it's with the anticipation that a fourth reactor or 4 and 5 would be built in Lower Ellery Creek.
Right.
That's the thought.
And with and I to back up about the power usage, there's so much new that's coming. And I don't think anyone anticipated, 10 years ago when New Jersey started moving more towards clean energy. I don't think, and you can speak to this, that anyone expected data centers to be as much of a boom as they are in 2026 and down the line. So even with new reactors, there's still going to be oil and gas plants, or I guess yeah, natural gas plants that will be going offline while we move towards that 2035 goal, hopefully putting nuclear, bringing that up, going with these smaller module units. Will that power be going towards residents and small businesses, or is that made for infrastructure for these data centers? Is that where the power's going?
It's a really good question because, electricity, like our 3 nuclear plants, which generate probably equal to 40% of what we need in New Jersey, just out of those 3 plants, that doesn't stay in New Jersey. That goes onto the grid.
Mhm.
So when you hear stories about a new data center and a potential runaway building in Pennsylvania,
Mhm.
Delaware, Virginia, they might as well be building them in New Jersey because they're
Mhm.
coming off the same grid.
Okay.
They're drawing the same power. And that's where the challenge is because we don't control any of that.
Right.
And frankly, if we could get all of our governors to sit in one room for a couple
Mhm.
hours and not try to fight with each other, we really need a multi-state compact for these things.
Mhm.
To
I like
decide.
it.
I actually love that.
I'm,
Yeah.
I'm not the first person to suggest it. I'm not that smart. And then the other thing that has to happen is, and we're hoping FERC, which is acting with some degree of independence, again, the Federal Energy Regulatory
Mhm.
Commission, we need them to impose on PJM the requirement to have a component that weighs affordability.
Right.
Because right now they'll tell you, and they've said it publicly, we don't care about that. Our job is to move electricity by demand, and they're very good at it. I mean, these are brilliant minds and engineers.
Mhm.
And frankly, this grid is held up when New York City's had brownouts
Mhm.
recently. We don't experience that because they really do a good job on moving electricity. They do not do a good job on public bidding and keeping an eye on affordability. Because at a given point, and if the states had been cooperating, this development of these data centers would be in a more orderly fashion that generation could catch up and we wouldn't have this disruption. Because, you're here, someone Bailey has said it correctly. Right now, we as residents in New Jersey, as well as residents in Delaware and elsewhere,
Mhm.
are essentially underwriting the development and operation of these data centers.
Mhm.
And they're big business and very smart people, by the way. And here's my projection. You'll enjoy this. I think because, the one thing
Writing
smart,
this down.
yeah, because the one thing smart people understand is the value of money. So after you build a data center, the biggest continuing expense is energy. So at a given point, there's going to be a new chip. Someone's going to invent a different processor and they're going to use less electricity
Exactly.
because they don't want to spend.
And pretty rapidly, I think that iteration will come.
It could come. It could come. So meanwhile, we have to manage ourselves as we make this investment in new generation that we don't end up with a lot of stranded assets. So it's like a catch-22.
I love this because
Yeah.
this is a big concern of mine.
Well, it has to be because, even a nuclear plant, people say, well, we didn't do wind. It was going to be expensive. Right now, with the generation rates, wind would be very competitive. So, and on the nuclear plant, we pay for that stuff as ratepayers.
Right.
That's not free. I mean, the PSEG, they're not big on spending money. And when they do, they want to make it sure it's ours and not theirs.
Right.
So, the nuclear plant's not free. So even with the federal government stepping in, if they keep their word, there's reason to think that they won't in this particular case. There's still going to be a $7-8 billion investment on the part of somebody building it. They're going to want a return on their investment. That's the three of us sitting here.
Right.
So we have to manage all this.
Is there something that we could implement? And I've heard other states having this conversation where data centers, because that is a huge draw for power, for energy, where they would be paying for that expansion of power generation.
The work we're doing now, it's already passed the assembly. Bill is a co-sponsor, but a good voice on it. And now it's sitting, waiting for, as I think to tell people, the ordained wisdom of the Senate to put the final touches on. So that's what we do. We sit and we decide. So there will be the ability to have a different tariff. So they will pay differently.
Okay.
And you will have to pay for infrastructure. And right now the rules don't allow for that, and it should. So the Atlantic State Electric will tell you if you can demonstrate that you're going to have a demand, we'll put a substation in. But you have to demonstrate you're going to do it and use it for a certain amount of time. This will require them to pay for that, as opposed to just saying we're going to use it. Because right now, just like a large supermarket and a large business, they pay more for electricity than Jennifer pays here at the house. And they use more, they pay more. We have demand meters at the studio, for example. So if we're using incandescent lights, we pay a different rate. But that doesn't make up for everything that happened prior to getting to the meter being on the building. And that's where this gets tricky because, we can't figure out, I shouldn't say we can't figure out, we haven't figured out how to assess the data centers for what their influence of the capacity market generation bidding cost, because they're the ones, and all that unbridled runaway development is what caused the generation price of electricity to go through the roof. So I don't know that we figured out how to go back and assess them and say, here's what it physically costs to get it to you. But by the way, because you're here, the price of electricity is up by 30%. So now we're going to tack that on.
Is there a study, or is there another state that's a little bit further ahead that we could use as an example to base that? Or is it that, I mean, this is all new ground that we're talking about. But I mean, are those the types of solutions that we're interested in, or is it very New Jersey specific for that?
Well, we only govern in New Jersey as a people. So that's why I said a compact among states would be helpful.
Yeah.
Now that hasn't been discussed yet. I mean, because you just got to get in the room and come up with a strategy.
I agree.
You got to have the technology. I mean, I said at the press conference the other day, and it drew some attention. I said, look, I got to make a decision. You have to manage this, or you have to decide we're going to start living like the Amish. Because you can't stand still.
Yeah, this multi-state compact that you're referencing seems like a very powerful way forward to developing strategies and policies that do protect ratepayers.
Yes, Jen, yes. We tried to do it once before. I think Ed Rendell was governor, had a meeting in Cherry Hill, governor of Delaware, governor of New Jersey, and the governor of Pennsylvania. We're going to have this economic development sit down. It was a nice luncheon. I think it was a buffet. And
what did you have, chicken or beer?
I don't remember. All I know is they never met again. It was such a good idea. They never did it again. So, because everyone has their own interest.
Yeah.
And like for example, what we're doing on the nuclear plant stuff, the governor of New York made her announcement yesterday, essentially doing the same with workforce development. That's stuff's already in place in New Jersey. But to jumpstart, their nuclear circumstances. Because remember, we have a retired, Oyster Creek is retired.
Right.
That was the oldest operating nuclear plant in the country at the time. So that can be a hub for, say, modular nuclear reactors because the infrastructure is there. The infrastructure is there. We have two former coal plants, one in Lower Gloucester County, Logan Township, that's retired.
Yep.
And one at Carneys Point is
Mhm.
retired. So both of those places could easily host a natural gas plant because the hookup to the grid is there. Because myself Heather, Dave are on the same page, or generally are, with respect to we need all the above.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
nuclear is going to be anywhere from 8 to 15 years out.
That's right.
Well, that's exactly.
Yeah.
So these data centers are coming now,
Well, they're not coming. They're
supposedly.
coming somewhere.
Yeah.
They're not
Well,
coming
they're
here.
knocking on the door is what I
Yes,
mean
Yeah.
by saying
correct.
they're coming now. And 8 to 15 years from now, I would imagine that data center development will be very different technologically and
So,
footprint speaking, and
Mhm.
also the amount of power that they're bringing in. So it's a race, right?
Mhm.
To lock down data center development and control it, but also build the power. And the data centers are coming first, not the power.
correct.
Mhm.
Correct. At least at the moment. And remember, it's not just New Jersey. So,
Right.
Delaware's got a
Absolutely.
tug of war over 1 million square foot
Mhm.
data center. I think I want to say out in Middletown, but it's not somewhere in that part of the state. It looks like the people successfully held it up. The work that we've done here, Dave's bill, which has passed the assembly, which is sitting in the Senate, which will get to the governor's desk within 2 weeks, gives municipality new tools of how they can weight things involving a data
Okay.
center. And that's very important.
I'm
Mhm.
sorry, could you dive a little deeper into that?
I was afraid you were going to ask that. So
I'm very
know that.
excited about this.
Well, it's not the governor spoke pretty clearly at the press conference. So it's going to give the local municipality more tools to weigh impact. So, for example, if a data center is approved, and by the way, it's also going to be able to allow the municipality to require the data center to have community participation. It can't be isolated. When I say isolated, requires them to seek their own power. Doesn't mean you have to build a power plant next to it, but they have to source electricity. I don't know what that means, by the way, because it's not the amount of generators is
Yeah, there's 64 generators at the Vineland Data One data center.
to support that.
64
Okay.
generators. Hmm.
It's interesting because Vineland has their own utility and then they're backed up by Atlantic City Electric. But they're also generating on site. And I think this bill takes into consideration that they can source electricity. It doesn't have to be generated on site because can you imagine, for example, so that data center wants to come. That itself is controversial.
Hmm.
And then they're going to have to convince people to put a gas-fired plant or generators next to it.
Right.
How's that going to go?
Right.
Not going to go well.
Yeah.
So it's not practical always to attach generation. But the bill requires them to identify
Mhm.
electricity and to source it. I don't know what
Mhm.
that means. But I do have a sense of it. And then it provides some additional tools at the local planning board level. And so that way, if a municipality should turn them down, it's less likely they could be brought into court with a court challenge that the municipality was being arbitrary because we're giving additional authority to the municipality.
That's terrific
Mhm.
because that's one of the big issues that we're talking about on the municipal level across Salem County is we have these data center bans banned in all zones, but it's not a panacea by any means.
No, but
It's a speed bump so that we can get our arms around the issue so the public will be notified and people can be part of the conversation. But these additional protections make it less arbitrary and
correct.
less likely that we're going to get steamrolled just because somebody's bigger and savvier.
No, I've been
Right.
following very closely, and I think the municipalities have been acting in their interest correctly, properly. East Greenwich has been a battle. Now that
Yeah.
that's a little bit that's gotten to a point of process that this legislation will be able to reach because we'll be able to call back on it. So hopefully they'll pace themselves because I think the governor will sign the final bill, and Dave worked very hard on it. The assembly probably had 6 committee hearings. I think we've had 2 in the Senate. And then the governor's office stepped in and said, would you consider doing a number of things?
Mhm.
And they were all okay. It was really a BPU. So I think we're going to accept what they're asking for because the governor has to sign the bill. It
Yes.
doesn't help us if he's not going to sign it. So that's going to get done. When we close out, we have to close out. The budget has to be done July 1st. My prediction is that the data center bill will get signed at the time the budget does.
Okay.
So all that stuff will be in place.
I was going to, and you already kind of answered this, but one of my questions was about some of the heartburn a lot of residents are having over when we bring more power, that will bring more industrialization, more warehousing, more data centers to rural New Jersey. And you're a rural guy. You're from Southern New Jersey anyway. You've lived here your entire life. But I think that with the tools in the bill that you've mentioned, it sounds like you're also giving tools to either slow that down or more strategically manage that development so that industrialization doesn't happen, or at least it's better planned. Do you have any other advice or insight in what people could be doing in general while we're waiting for things to be signed? Is there Is there anything out there that we could be doing in the meantime?
Look, I think the engagement has been good all the way around.
Hmm.
So it's always, always, and Jennifer sitting to my right, and I've had this conversation. It's always about having your master plan up to date.
Hmm.
Make sure you got the zoning overlays the way you want them, because they're very powerful tools. Because if anyone wants to do something different, they have to ask for a variance, and a variance is not a guarantee. It's
Hmm.
called a variance for a reason.
Hmm.
So the problem is with municipalities is everybody's distracted trying to just hold everything together. Forward thinking doesn't always happen because there
Right.
isn't always time.
Right.
Our municipalities are run by volunteers in large part. Part-time governments, part-time elected officials. So zoning, planning, master plan, all those things. Decide what you want to be, and then you stay to it.
Got it. Was there anything else that you wanted to talk about in your bill?
Well, I do have a question about how the funding would occur with Assembly Bill 4881. In Section 7, because I don't understand the language, I'm not a lawyer or a legislator. So when I read something, it raises a concern, but I don't know that it's necessarily concerning. Section 7 of the bill indicates that ratepayers, including residents of Salem County, will fund the support mechanism of this project, which will result in higher energy bills ultimately. So can you help me understand that particular, and this isn't like a gotcha moment.
Yeah, but who wrote that? That's not in the bill. I mean, because you said Salem County, so I mean,
I added the word
okay,
including Salem
okay,
County so that
okay.
people would understand we're talking about a bill that would affect this area. So
Well,
I
it affects
think
everything.
I
Yes.
think what I wanted to understand is what does it mean that the ratepayers would fund the support mechanism for this project?
Well, you're talking about the nuclear plant.
Yes, yes. I'm sorry.
Because,
Excuse me. Yeah.
yeah, because Jennifer, as I said, as ratepayers, we always pay. And so I think when you read into the bill, you'll see that it requires that analysis to occur because the federal government's going to pick up a portion. The developer's going to have to pay a lot of money, but the developer is us in the end. It's not free. So if whatever entity is going to build the traditional nuclear reactor, for lack of better term,
Sure.
and they're going to invest anywhere between $6 and $8 billion with a B. They're going to expect a return.
Mm.
They only get the return when they sell electricity. Well, that's us because they're selling it to us.
Yeah.
So that electricity is going to be part of the capacity bid process that I spoke about earlier, which I'm sure put a lot of our viewers to sleep right away. But we're in that pot. So this bill requires, as I understand it, that be understood going in. How's this going to flow? How's it going to reach us? What proportion is going to reach us? There are questions that the developer's going to have to answer. But ratepayers always pay. When we were in the middle of the wind stop, people said, "Well, let's build a nuclear plant." We'd love to build a nuclear
Hmm.
plant. A lot of jobs to build it,
Hmm.
good jobs to run it, reliable. I mean, we've come through. Those nuclear plants always tell the story. They were going to close. This was a real deal. Steve Sweeney was still Senate president. I was
Hmm.
I was in the Assembly chairing appropriations. Abtel Ferrer was there, and we led the argument to create what were called ZECs,
Hmm.
zero emission tax credits.
Hmm.
So that allowed PSEG, operator of the nuclear plant, to be competitive, which was then artificially low gas prices. Couldn't make any money. Like the 3 Mile Island, the plant that was still running, that closed during that period, as well as at a couple other plants
Yes,
across the
it did.
country because America had such a plentiful amount of natural gas
Hmm.
that it was a low price. Of course, now, as always the case, as many people thought, they figured out how to export natural gas. So now
Hmm.
natural gas is high because
Hmm.
now we're selling to the world and it wasn't held captive here. So anyway, we ended up, we were successful, talked the governor into it. Everyone was happy. That's the year we got thrown out of office. Just a coincidence. That's the way it is. The way
Thank
it
you
is.
for your work.
Yeah,
See you
yeah, yeah,
later.
exactly. We were out. But the
Hmm.
point was the plants were safe. And that gets us to today.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And now I see 3 Mile Island is talking about starting up the plant
That's
that's
right.
down,
Hmm.
but they're looking to take that, what they say, behind the meter. So
Hmm.
they're going to generate electricity with a data center, and none of that electricity is going to get to the grid.
Correct.
And there was talk down in Ellery's Creek to develop a data center and put it
Hmm.
behind the meter. And that drew our attention very quickly. But we can't afford to take electricity off the grid at this
Right.
point. I'm sorry. What was the question? I see I get long-winded. That's what
No, no,
happens.
you answered
We're
it.
rambling here.
You answered it. It's something that I've been thinking on for the last couple weeks. It would be really good to know going forward as this bill makes its way through the Senate to learn more about the guardrails that can be placed on how much the rates can be raised to support this mechanism.
Well, we have a process. It's the Board of Public Utilities, which at times I've been critical of, at times I've been
Yeah.
very supportive of. They'll be the ones that have to set these rates. Now, these utility companies are allowed a reasonable return on investment because they got to stay in business. I mean,
Sure.
so that's where that battle will be held.
So can as a legislator you say at some level there's this return on investment? We'll talk a percentage. I don't really know what the percentage are. So just for the
Almost
sake of
nine
our
percent at the moment.
Oh, great.
It's a
Okay.
big
So
number.
so there's this 9% return on investment that's expected or is standard.
That's a rounded number, by the way. It could be off by a little bit.
So can the Senate say something along the lines of, okay, well, there's this 9% ROI. When we get to 11%, we start profit sharing with the ratepayers and reducing their bills.
Well, interesting you say that because there is some language in this related to this project, meaning the nuclear plant, that speaks about ratepayers doing better. Not clear on the mechanism, even though it's my bill, because I think the BPU is going to have to develop that.
Sure.
See, but here's the double-edged sword to that. We can do anything, by the way. As a legislature, we can do anything that's constitutionally legal.
Okay.
So we can do that. I mean, the governor froze a portion of the electric bill the day she was sworn in. But that's very narrow. I mean, it was well intended. It sent the right message, but it doesn't control generation, which is a big part of this. So we can do all that. And I got to back up here because I felt myself that when PJM ran that auction that went from $28 a megawatt hour to $270 a megawatt hour,
Mhm.
that was designed to, first of all, it was driven by the generators, the people that are in that business. And I think that was a number they were looking at that said, if we're paying that, if we get this increased megawatt hour rate, it will attract investment
Okay.
into building generation so they can get a better return. And I think you're going to find that plays out. So, we can do it. The legislature can direct the BPU to do something and they would be required to do it. But then if the utility companies have no incentive and they can't attract investors, that's not good either.
Correct.
It's a very delicate balance. So, myself, I don't know the argument about deregulation, is it working? I don't know. I mean, they were called public utilities for a reason. So, we went away from that. And in Jersey, we sort of did it half-ass anyway. Other states deregulated to a greater extent.
Right.
We just said to our utilities, you can't be in a generation business. You got to sell everything off. Now we have a number of bills are making its way through the legislature that would allow our public utilities to go back in generation business. It worked so well the last time we took them out. Now we're going to put them back in. Can't figure it out. So
Well, is that something similar? I know with Pennsylvania and their energy generating plants. So you have natural gas, they're turning over permits, they're able to renew. It's an easier process. When you're talking about deregulating, are you talking about that whole process of being able to operate and renew quickly and have like an easier process, or is it deregulation in a different sense?
it'd be in a different sense.
Okay.
But but you just touched on something very important. The you know a new natural gas plant could probably be constructed in New Jersey in 5 to 7 years tops. Now anybody can build anyone can come into New Jersey and try to get permits for a natural gas plant, but it would be a battle.
Yeah.
And that's where we have got to get. We're one step away from the governor recognizing that needs to happen.
Yeah.
Do we need 3 plants? Do we need 5 plants? Probably in that range.
Right.
And the nice thing with natural gas is they can start up quickly and they close down quickly. And nuclear plants, you can't shut them down.
Right.
They got to
Yeah.
run. And
Yeah.
by the way, when we were battling to get the ZEX in place, Commissioner Bob Gordon of the BPU, when he recognized that a nuclear plant can't be idled down, then he agreed that we had to do the tax credits. Because frankly, we went into that, we had 2 votes, we needed 5, and then we had to go get the other 3, which we successfully did. But the point is, on these nuclear plants, they got to run.
Yeah.
They got to run.
Yeah. It's a huge commitment. Financial. You need the personnel there, you need the space. With the natural gas, and I think that one of the really concerning things for me and what I hear a lot, even from like the agricultural community, is those energy bills are just for them with the large operations, right? They're so big. When you talk about doubling the cost of power, it's hard to like outsell. You can only sell so many tomatoes until you make up for that doubling of power. And I think a lot of what we've heard over even the past years of talking with people is I know energy plants are maybe 8, 10, 15, 20 years out. The concern is that for a lot of small businesses or even farmers, that they might only have another 5 years left at the current rate. So I think just people are watching this issue so closely because they're worried about if we keep going at this rate, of cost, they just can't even operate. And you're going to
Uh,
see the downtowns and farms go.
the farming business, a good day is hard. When I think of farmers and energy, the first thing comes to mind is diesel. That's what they're
Hmm.
talking to me about, which we have no control over. And there was talk we should suspend the gas tax in New Jersey. And then one guy called me very upset. He says, you're making all this extra sales tax money on because the price of gasoline is up. So you're making more money. And I said, well, that's not how it works.
Hmm.
Because New Jersey's, and that this gives me a chance to say it because people don't realize it,
Hmm.
but the motor fuel tax in New Jersey is fixed. So whether gasoline's selling for $1.50 a gallon or selling for $5 a gallon, God forbid, at $5 a gallon, the amount of money collected by the state is the same. It doesn't move. It's not like a
Okay.
sales tax. There is no sales tax on gasoline or diesel, and there is no tax on home heating oil. So in our case, a number of years ago, again, it was a different generation,
Hmm.
different governor. Steve Sweeney was in place. We asked the people in New Jersey if they wanted to change the Constitution to make sure that motor fuel taxes are constitutionally guaranteed to do what they're collected for. And they said yes. So the money collected goes towards what it's supposed to. We just made an announcement the other day for work in Cumberland County, bridge work, and I think Salem County as well, Mannington, multi-millions of dollars
Hmm.
coming out of the fund, coming back home, which is good news. So the problem is that it keeps adjusting because it's all based on the money borrowed to do projects. And so constitutionally, a certain amount of money has to be generated to pay those obligations. So if we were to say, take off the gas tax, which probably as we're sitting here today is probably 34 cents a gallon, maybe a few pennies either way, we'd have to take that out of our general budget to make up the obligation to pay the bonds.
Okay.
So we don't have the luxury of moving that at this
Hmm.
time because of the way it works.
Right.
And every year it's reviewed to see if we're collecting enough money to meet the obligations
Got it.
against sales. And as cars get more efficient, as electric vehicles make their way
Hmm.
to some extent, I drive one, but I have lots of gasoline
Hmm.
vehicles as well.
Hmm.
That it's if there was an easy answer, we would have it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hopefully, with all of this new stuff coming up and maybe some new gas plants.
Yeah, look, look,
Yeah.
we're going to survive, but
Yeah.
I always say to people, and this is I'm only on my second cup of coffee for the day, but if you ask what's the number one problem of our society, and some people will say drugs
Yeah.
a few years
Yeah.
ago, I say it's greed. I mean, and I don't say that lightly. I mean,
Yeah.
when I look at what's happened on electric generation, you know, we're going to get into this shortly to see where the windfall profits are, to
Hmm.
see what happened. Someone's making a lot of money.
Yeah.
It's
Hmm.
the way it is. And by the way, it's okay to make money,
Right.
but it's not okay to squeeze people the way people are being squeezed on essential services like
Hmm.
providing electricity.
Fair enough.
How's that for a pontification this morning?
That was
Yeah.
great.
Thank you.
That was wonderful. Before 2 cups of
Yeah,
coffee.
before
That
two
was
cups of,
wonderful.
and no teleprompter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this was wonderful. Well, I think this is so much information. This was a great
Yes. I'm
overview.
going to have to watch this back and take notes.
Yes.
I've learned a lot from this conversation and a lot of different things to research. And I appreciate you taking the time to educate us because it is a big deal. And to your point, it is complicated. I've been studying this since last summer.
Hmm.
And every time I think I understand something about it, a whole other avenue opens up and there's more to learn.
Jen, it's because like the old people will tell you, you follow the money, you'll find the truth.
Yeah.
Hmm.
On this electric equation we're talking about, you got to follow the money.
Yeah.
And technology is going to change. So this delicate balance of how we get there with regards to, when we need this electricity, because, you built multiple gas plants. No one's
Hmm.
going to build a gas plant without a contract to sell.
Right. Hmm.
And so that comes back to the ratepayers.
Yeah.
We pay for everything. I don't mean that in a bad way, but ratepayers, we pay.
No, it's
Yes.
just a fact. It's not good or bad.
Yeah,
It's just
it's
factual.
reflected in the
Yeah.
bill.
Yeah.
So we want 3 gas plants. I mean, I don't know what the price of a gas plant is. It certainly is in the billions at the moment.
Hmm.
Other places you can cite them? Of course there are.
Right.
I mean, the refinery in Paulsboro where I live, they have excess ground. They could easily, and they're tied to heavy power to the grid, so you can get
Right.
electricity out. And the gas plants function very well today. Coal's another matter. If they could have ever figured out how to get the mercury out of the exhaust.
Yeah. There has been advances in that technology, but still not enough
Apparently not.
Yeah.
to not win it in my neighborhood. I don't have
Right.
a
Yeah.
coal plant in my neighborhood.
Right.
Well, the new gas plant in West Effort, when I say new, it's probably 15 years old. That was going to be a coal plant, and the community's rallied and said, "Look, we got enough here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not coal.
Yeah.
Gas, yes, not coal." Eventually, it became a gas plant. No, and I don't know, when you say learn, I mean, both of you are very engaged. That's a big deal. That's why I'm
Yeah.
here, because I trust both of you that, you're on the ground.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
Yeah.
thank you for supporting us and
Yeah.
trying to be engaged and educated
no,
about
you got
something.
to, by the way, it's okay to make a mistake.
Yeah, and I
And
think
so when I
that's what
say make,
we
yeah,
try to get
yeah,
across
it's
too.
okay. It's
Mhm.
okay. And, nobody hit me with a sword on my shoulder when I arrived at the State House a number of years ago and had named me with great wisdom. Now, I said the wisdom of the Senate. We say that's an internal thing. By the
Mhm.
way, and you'll have them you'll have them with you at some point. But Dave Bailey is performing in an outstanding
Mhm.
way, as is Heather Simmons,
Yes.
and they
Mhm.
have both found some focus, and the lanes are working in, and they're having an effect, a good effect. Uh,
Wonderful.
it really is. It really
Mhm.
is. And for me to have that kind of level of partner support, and
Mhm.
myself to them as well, is good for all of us. So, and there's work to be done.
Yeah, and it's nice having this conversation where we can ask questions and just learn about what's going on because it doesn't help just staying in our boxes and not
Right.
having other
Right.
voices and different people a part of the conversation because it's really affecting everybody. So yeah,
Everything affects everybody. I
yeah.
mean,
Well, I think too, with your geology background
Hmm.
and your environmental background, and of course your long uh, tenure in politics and legislation, I think it's good that someone like me shows up who has really no expertise or background, just to say, I don't know, I want to learn, and I feel like that's been really helping people get engaged in these conversations, even just through a simple platform like Facebook.
Right.
From when we started to now, people are willing to step out, make mistakes, ask questions, and
correct.
make statements
Yeah.
and be corrected appropriately. And I try to model that for people. I just made a post last week
Hmm.
with what I thought was factual and correct information that I had gathered from other individuals, only to be corrected in the comments by someone who was an expert in the topic. I was grateful for the correction.
Yeah.
Well, experts are always welcome. I'm surrounded by 'em.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I don't
That's
mean just
good.
sitting at this table,
Yeah.
just surrounded
Mm.
by lots of experts. People telling me what to do all the time.
See.
It makes the day easier. But the one thing
Yeah.
I do want to mention something.
Yeah.
Jen, we had a brief conversation on it, and Jen, we have not. But we have a bill, three of us are sponsoring, called New Jersey Loves New Jersey Farmers. And really anxious to get this moving. And that's, because you mentioned how tough the farming
Hmm.
business is. And essentially what it does, it creates a transferable tax credit
Hmm.
for commercial
Hmm.
Canada. So the bill's designed very simply that as long as he gets that product to market, that if that product falls short of the cost to grow it and get it out of the ground, pack it, take it to market, he would be eligible. I don't mean to be gender specific. The farmer would be eligible for a transferable tax credit to guarantee that he breaks even on that crop that year.
Okay.
Uh, and, uh, and, and, and I think it's something we can do. I think it's something we should do. We're underwriting the film industry. We do tax credits on things called Aspire to help
Hmm.
build housing and various things. We do, as the people of New Jersey, the collective body, we do a lot of those things. So if we can help underpin farm business,
Hmm.
then farm business can stay.
Right.
Because the best farmland preservation is farm business preservation.
That's right.
And
Yes.
and not
That's
and not and
wonderful.
not that any of us can tell a person what to do with their land. In Salem County, if a farmer wants to put his land in preservation, we made the process competitive with developer money, so they have a better chance. Now, it still has bumps because it's a government program.
Hmm.
Sometimes it takes a little longer to close than it should, but that money is there to be used if a family entity wants to keep their farm in farming, they'll get a competitive price for the ground. But this idea of stabilizing crop prices to market does two things in my mind. One, it gives them a better chance to be whole, get through the
Hmm.
year. The second thing is if we bring product to the marketplace, it can affect the marketplace price. So if their product gets there, then it's better chance there's more product in the market, which would be a competitive price for the consumer.
Love it.
We win on that. The other thing we proposed in this budget this year, when I say we, it's myself and others, Dave and Heather as well, is that we increased the budget for New Jersey. What's our, just draw a blank on our marketing program? Jersey Fresh.
Oh,
What's
wonderful.
it called? It's
Right.
called Jersey Fresh.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hmm.
See,
Yep.
I knew that. I see that.
That was great because
Yeah.
They
that
talked about that
budget
at
has
Farm
been,
Summit.
yeah, it's been
Hmm.
getting,
It's
it wasn't very high, but
no,
now
it's been
I know,
embarrassingly
I
low.
know,
It's been embarrassingly
I
low. It's
know,
like $150,000 or something.
Right.
I know.
We're sitting between the number one and number four media market in the country. So you
Hmm.
can't buy anything for a little bit. So we'll see if we can get this finesse through this year. I don't know where the governor's going to be in his final budget. We're taping this. What is today? June 2nd.
Yes.
Yes.
So
Hmm.
Election day.
Hmm.
no one knows that, by the way. I'm glad you mentioned it.
We've been trying to get the message out, but nobody wants to hear it.
It is too quiet. It's just
It's
quiet.
too quiet.
So we have to have a state budget by July 1st.
So July 1st is a big day.
Yeah, that's what the Constitution says.
And how can people find out more information about all of these new bills? Will you be announcing this on your Facebook?
On which one?
This New Jersey Loves New Jersey Farmers.
Refreshing.
Yeah, and
that's
then
been around. So that bill's out there. Could be
that's out there, and then people can already find and locate that.
Yeah, and by the way, I don't consider that to be a final version.
Okay.
But that's the starting point for the discussion.
Sounds great.
We're waiting for the Farm Bureau, those people to weigh in.
There's a lot going on. So,
well, you had the freeze. I mean, you see New York's looking for money. Everybody's looking for money from the Fed. The Feds will be the ones that participate in that.
Yeah.
So the farm bill's out there. The budget, we won't know what we have till it's final.
Got it. And that'll be July 1.
It has to be by July 1, or we have to cease operations.
Okay.
Now, there'll be a lot of people looking at this and say, good, no government's better. But, constitutionally, we got to have something.
Yeah. Well, this was a wonderful discussion.
Oh, please, lady.
Lively.
Yeah.
I feel like,
did we say anything?
I think we said a couple of things.
Good.
I think we said a lot. Yeah.
We might have solved the energy problem, or maybe not. At least we talked about it. I think we're a few more episodes off from the energy issue. But
I was hoping for an easy answer.
Yeah.
I wish there were, but the place to keep your eye on, watch this stuff out of FERC and PJM. PJM, I forget what the initials are. It's Pennsylvania, whatever.
Yeah.
That's where the game is right at the moment on these generation costs.
Okay.
Now, by the way, we couldn't get the previous Attorney General would not sue. I personally spoke to him at the time. His name was Matt Placken. I said, look, you sue somebody. You got 400 lawyers over here.
Yeah.
Sue them over a bidding process. Now, this new Attorney General, boy, she's very good. Of course, they're busy right now with this detention. I don't know what they're doing in Newark. They're chasing people around or something.
Yep.
We got to get their attention on a few of these other things as well, because I really think we should go back as a state entity, and we should make an effort to get internal documents on how the bidding process occurred, because all that stuff is there. And if something really wasn't right, then maybe we could claw back something.
Yeah.
So I wonder if we could over request
Don't
go
know.
through those.
I don't know if they're subject to it.
That's what I didn't. Yeah.
Because they're a federal agency.
Yeah.
Yes, and they're not responsive. We've had them at many meetings. They're not unpleasant.
Right.
And
right.
the one thing we didn't touch on, I'd like just to put this, is just because it's something we have to think about. A big contention with PJM is they're very slow and do not recognize renewables. And in their world, you can understand why, because they have to know that in October, after the 11th day of no sun, when they need power, they're going to get it. So that's a time where solar doesn't function well.
Right.
Yeah.
And there would even be limitations of wind. All these renewables have limitations.
Right.
But the one key that the legislature has the BPU to implement, and they've been slow in doing, but they're getting there, is we need large scale battery storage.
Yeah.
So because when electricity is generated, it has to go somewhere unless there's a place to store it.
Right.
So on a beautiful day like today, solar's doing pretty well. Although frankly, it probably, even on a good day, it represents maybe 4% of what we need.
Yeah.
But 4% is still 4%.
That's true.
So this battery storage thing is going to be the next bone of contention, because you see opponents saying, well, it's lithium batteries, they catch on fire.
Yeah. Is that the next thing that's coming?
Yeah, it's a big thing.
Yeah.
So I'm giving you a heads up to get ready.
To show a location in my municipality, which is LAC. And one of the things we're famous for are these beautiful pine forests. So this company was recommending that they purchase this location, or at least this location in a pine forest, to store lithium batteries. It's about 1,500 acres of woodlands, and I live in the middle of it. And I was like, well, I mean, let's put lithium batteries in basically a tinderbox.
Correct.
Yeah. But so we have to.
Got to be ready.
It's important. Battery storage is important. I'm not saying no, but we need smart sites.
Got to get in the right place. And that's why the wind stuff, which I'm telling you, I'll be penning something very shortly with the question, did we miss a generational opportunity on the wind stuff? In Salem County, the state invested, I don't know, $250 million in the wind port. That would have been easily 200, 300 jobs steady. And Paulsboro, we took a portion of the Paulsboro port to make it for monopile manufacturing, which had started. 600 jobs, and not to count the maintenance jobs. So between what I just mentioned, easily 1,000 jobs are gone. But more importantly, soon we'll know, because Rhode Island is about to, I think their large scale offshore wind field's about to come online. It's off Newport, Rhode Island. If you're standing at the breakers, which have been there many times, you can see the tips up.
Yeah.
I don't find it to be it is what it is. I
Yeah.
mean, frankly, when we were talking about in New Jersey, you go so far off the curve of the earth takes them away. They just paint them blue. We're not going to see them anyway.
Yeah.
But that was dismissed out of pocket, by the way. But so it'll be very interesting if Rhode Island, if that does well, then clearly we have missed a generational
Yeah.
opportunity. If it turned out to be flawed, then maybe somebody made the right decision. But we don't know that yet. We don't know that yet. All we know is we didn't do it. So
Well, and I think if that comes online and you have your proof of concept, I know that the wind has been they've attempted wind in other places. And
right,
a lot of people I know, I'm from northeastern PA, and the mountain ridges have,
always had for a while.
yeah, they've had
Yep.
about 20 years, but they don't move and they're up there. And so now that original company, now we're not saying that that's the same case now, but that original company, they stopped moving and then they disappear. And now all of a sudden we have mountains with windmills on
So,
top
so,
They're
so,
not moving.
so,
that are moving.
so they're not generating electricity at all.
I don't know what they're, every time I see them, they're stopped.
Okay.
But that's a 20-year-old business.
Right.
You're talking about something that's new, where there's other checks and balances in place that the companies have. What is it? Financial assurance that they have to put down. They have to have a closure plan on all of that, I assume. So with whatever happens with Rhode Island, hopefully that is a proof of concept for something in the future that you could ease those
Well, the other
ailments.
point as well is just because when you happen to drive by on the turnpike or
Mhm.
going through the road, you don't see them moving. That just may be the moment.
Mhm.
When I say moment, because that's why the battery storage with wind and
Sure.
solar comes into play, because the highest output of offshore wind is at night.
Okay.
And at that point, there's no place for electricity to go because the demand isn't there. That's why the battery storage has to come in.
So maybe it's different with the mountain
Well, it
ones.
could be. It could be.
There'll
Yeah.
be a
Yeah.
rabbit hole to go down.
Yeah, look,
Yeah.
you can't stop thinking about advancements
Mhm.
in technology. Once you close out something, I use the
That's
term,
right.
we're going to live like the Amish. No.
You think that scares me?
No, I don't. But and people, I said that, say, "Oh my God, you're going to offend the Amish." I said, "How are they going to know?"
They're watching right
yeah,
now.
Although
so-
I'm not gonna lie, I didn't want to go without electricity.
Yeah.
Well, correct. But and I, but
I don't know if you recall that conversation we had.
I can't. I'm not.
No.
I don't recall yesterday.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
So,
So go
yes,
on. There's so much to talk about.
there is so much to talk
Yeah.
about. Well, this is a lot of information. I think a
Yeah.
good takeaway is that we need to update our master plans.
Everyone does.
Everyone needs to get their master plans updated and secured. And we need to follow along with these bills that you have coming through, because there's a lot in them.
I want to. The thing I want to say, because talking to people, people are seeing
Mhm.
this. I may not get to run to in person. The tone in Trenton is very collegial. It's not like you see out of Washington with respect to things loggerhead. We all talk to each other, both houses, friendly.
Mhm.
Doesn't mean we always agree. I mean, I don't always agree with the people living in my house, and that's only
Mhm.
one other person. But the point is, it's collegial, and I
Mhm.
still say I've been in that state house for a number of years now. I still find it elevating to arrive there. Place is
Mhm.
beautiful, well cared for. People talk to each other. Debates are generally good and very civil. I mean,
Mhm.
we have a couple wackos. The other side of the aisle has a couple wackos, but that just adds some spice now and then. But you should know that people people are really trying, and we're just people. So
Yeah. Yeah, we are just people.
just people.
And if
just
we
people.
can't have conversations and either agree or disagree on things and debate them out, then what's the point?
Exactly.
So that's why this is so important. Well, really appreciate you
No,
coming out.
please. I mean, I'm getting
Thank you
thrown out.
so much. No, you're not getting through. We can
No,
keep
do you have
going.
anything else you'd like to
Summer
talk about?
vacations.
No.
I
Hobbies.
heard you're a train guy.
Mhm.
Love trains.
Yeah.
Love trains.
Yeah.
I'm fighting with them now. Paulsboro Crossing because they're blowing whistles at 3:00 in the morning.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're just a fair weather train fan. You don't like
Well,
trains at 3
well,
a.m.
well,
But
we don't control. It's interesting. We don't. The Federal Railroad Administration controls them
that's right.
because the rails could have never been built.
That's
I
right.
just
So-
learned that from Woodstown Central Railroad.
Yeah,
Mhm.
we don't control them.
Mm.
So now they have a technology which is called quiet zones on rail crossings, which
Mhm.
means they have to make a little more of an investment of safety, and they don't have to blow the horns.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
So,
Okay.
now we have to figure out how to get them to do that. I have a meeting with them Wednesday to talk about that
Yeah.
because the light rail line, which is being proposed for Gloucester County, is going to have all quiet zones. So
Hmm.
there will be no horn blowing. So, can we get, I forget it's not Conrail anymore. I guess it's Norfolk Southern, I guess,
Yeah, I'm not sure.
rail wise.
But yeah.
It all runs together. So,
Yeah.
but, we can't tell them what to do.
Yeah.
Now we can, I haven't figured it out yet, but we can control noise ordinances at certain times of the day.
Can you?
We can.
Okay.
We can.
All right.
We can.
Well, at least at 3 o'clock in the morning. That seems a little
That's
aggressive.
a that's
Yeah.
a serious quality of life issue.
Well,
Yeah.
you get used to it a little bit.
Okay.
But when they change locomotives, they often have different horn setups.
Yep. Yep.
So now I got to get used to that again.
Yep.
And I'm probably a half mile from the crossing, and at times it feels like they're in my house.
Yeah.
I get used to
Yeah.
it after a while, but
It is
certainly,
exciting.
I mean, it should be courtesy about that.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
for
We want it to
sure.
be safe. I mean, this is serious stuff.
It is.
We've had kids got injured by trying to play with trains and stuff over the years. So it's not something to take lightly. But they can do better.
Yeah.
We can all do better,
Yeah.
and they can do better.
Yeah. Especially that early. We have one about a half mile from here, and I'll be on work calls, and it's blowing its horn and going
Yes,
nuts.
yes,
And
yes,
people are like,
yes,
"What is
yes.
that?" Like, I'm not in the train.
All right, ladies, any other
Yes.
questions for me?
Will you come
Yeah.
back?
Oh,
Because
yeah.
there's other topics that are going to come up.
Yeah, and Dave
And
Dave and Heather are available too. You just got to contact them.
Absolutely.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
we appreciate this exchange of information and your time.
Yes. And your candidness. Thank you.
Yeah,
for
you have been
laying this
very
out. Yeah.
candid. Thank you.
Well, that's what I picked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little spicy. We like that. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. And Senator John Burzichelli, thank you.
Been a pleasure. See you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.